Native American tale of the Piasa bird is a very mysterious story. The story goes that near the Mississippi Bluffs above Alton, Illinois, the Illini tribes moved in to live, and they were suddenly besieged upon by a giant man-eating bird. This bird lived in the cliffs and would swoop down and grab a man and eat them. The chief and his people did not know what to do because the bird was hard to kill. There are several versions of the story from old newspapers starting in the 1800s and all the way until the modern day. A vision was received on how to kill the bird, and the brave people did eventually kill the giant bird through tricking it with a sacrifice and then ambushing it. A picture of this man-eating giant bird was painted on the rock cliff in Alton, Illinois by the Illini, and the braves would shoot at it when traveling down the river. The bird not only had legs, but front paws as well. It was described as horned, with a large beak and claws on its feet and legs, and with large wings. Eventually, the original painting wore down, but it was repainted in modern day, and the legend lives on. Here is what was written in the old newspaper articles, starting with the Altoona Tribune, Thursday, February 13th, 1862. The Piasa Bird, an Indian Legend by Monsieur Le Canteur. Among the most vivid recollections of my early boyhood are those of the rambles I used to take with one or two juvenile cronies among the overhanging paths and quail-haunted cedar woods of the Mississippi Bluffs above Alton, in the large and lively state of Illinois. I doubt whether I should recognize those scenes if suddenly set down there today, for the march of civilization has passed that way and left very few of the ancient landmarks I knew and loved 12 years ago. There are railroads, long streets, piles of warehouses, mills and stores in Alton now which have all sprung up since I left there, and the very bluffs themselves have been quarried away for their excellent limestone, till the oldest inhabitant would scarcely know them. But when I was a half-fledged backwoodsman, given to shooting, riding, nutting, and bushwhacking generally, the bluffs were quite a splendid affair. They extended some miles along the northern bank of the river, a solid perpendicular wall of white limestone below some 100 or 200 feet in height, crowned above by lofty mounds of grass-grown soil, terraced by rains and storms, thinly dotted with oak and cedar, and surrounded by a narrow, tortuous footpath or trail that ran along the very brink of the sheer precipice. Far below, a rocky shore divided the waters of the Mississippi from this natural river wall, and the toothed boulders and jagged masses of limestone that strewed the margin made a glance from the top still more dizzy and terrible. I remember that one lofty point just beyond the old steam mill bore the name of Seaman's Leap. An unhappy man who had long been embittered by matrimonial difficulties found existence too heavy to bear, and one day threw himself from the elevation upon the murderous stones beneath. His name, Seaman, attached itself ever after to the scene of this tragedy. But this was not the most interesting portion of the bluffs to me, though I never passed it without a quick glance from pinnacle to base. and a cold shudder. The cave of the Piasa bird and the Indian painting of that strange myth on the smooth face of the cliff, midway between top and bottom, were the objects that most deeply fascinated my youthful fancy. My earliest remembrances of the bluffs are that there were a great many works of aboriginal art upon them. There were huge targets, rings, and bullseyes at which the Piasa Indians used to shoot from their canoes. There were hands painted by dipping one's hand in a pot of vermilion and pressing the palm against the rock. Some of these were 30 or 40 feet from the bottom, and the adventurous artist who executed them must have been the apex of a human pyramid, whose parts stood with their feet upon each other's shoulder. Lastly, there was a picture of the bird itself, a sprawling monster with dragon's wings, deer's horns, and a serpent's tail. It was much dimmed and defaced by the weather, but could be tolerably well made out within my recollection. The labors of the quarrymen, however, have obliterated all of these mementos of barbarism years ago, and the traveler on the Mississippi may look in vain for any of the vermilion stains that I recall so vividly. Of the Piasa tribe of Indians, not one is left. They were exterminated by the smallpox and wars with other tribes, at about the time I think of the admission of Illinois as a state. There is a stream emptying into the river at Alton called Piasa Creek, and there was once a hotel there called Piasa House, but no further souvenirs of these first families remained, save the bluff painting and countless arrowheads, some of them beautifully symmetrical, that were turned up by the plow on the farms thereafter. One field of my father's estate was sprinkled very plentifully with the heads of the barbed wire arrows, and a few inches below the surface. It had undoubtedly been the scene of some aboriginal Waterloo. But the tradition of the Piasa bird remained, and was known to all the early settlers in Alton. I imagine that it has been nearly forgotten by this time, for Alton is a flourishing entrepot, and the spirit of railroading is inimical to the spirit of legendary lore. Still, there are undoubtedly some who will recollect the old story, and reading it here will be glad to see it rescued from oblivion. Bald Eagle, the grim and grizzled old chief of the Piasa tribe, walked up and down before the lodge, hiding his face in his blanket and silently communing with himself. Within 12 of the women, disheveled and in mourning paint, sat rocking to and fro, shrilly chanting the death song. The braves lay asleep in their lodges or squatting about in groups, sullenly muttered monosyllabic remarks to each other. Thin columns of smoke ascended from a few tents here and there, where the old women cooked the venison slain the day before, but the signs of sorrow were more numerous than the signs of life in the Piasa village. As Bald Eagle strode gloomily up and down, there came to him Black Feather, the strongest and most courageous warrior of the tribe, a young man, but already high in honor and respect, loved by his friends and dreaded by his enemies. A brave man died last night, said Blackfeather abruptly. And one the night before, replied the chief, without pausing in his walk or uncovering his face. Our women must kill the bison next season, said the young warrior. Our lodges will be empty of braves, and the bears and the deers may come and laugh at us. The Great Spirit wishes us evil, said Bald Eagle, stopping and raising his arm toward heaven. Who will go next? A brave every night. Our lodges will be empty indeed. Blackfeather's heart never beat so fast or slower, replied the younger man. He does not know what fear is. If the Great Spirit wants him, he can smile as he goes. And Red Sunrise? The warrior's countenance expressed pain. She is only a woman, he said at length, resuming his usual solidity. Red Sunrise was the handsomest of all the Piasa women, and the most sought in marriage. She was the only daughter of Bald Eagle, and had been betrothed to Blackfeather only after he had presented her father with 100 scalps, including those of 3 or her own other suitors. This delicate proof of sincerity and courage had overcome all the chief's objections, and he had gladly consented to the ceremony of betrothal. Bald Eagle mused a while upon Blackfeather's words. Then he turned suddenly and said, "What shall we do?" The young man was silent. For 10 nights continued, the chief has the bird devoured one of our number every night. 10 good and brave warriors. The women cry and moan all day long. The men lose their spirit and care no longer to follow the warpath or the trail of the dare. I am old and used to storms, but I feel bowed down. The Great Spirit is offended. I know all this, said Blackfeather moodily, but what can we do? What do the medicine men say? They say that the bird is a bad manitow that dwells in a cave on the bluffs. It devours our braves nightly till the Great Spirit's anger is appeased. When will that be? How many lodges will be silent? The 2 men parried as they had met, gloomy, wondering, and fearing for the future. All day the women cried and chanted the song of mourning. All day the warriors lay listlessly about the tents, and whom night closed in, each went to sleep marveling if he should be the next victim to the cruel rapacity of the manitow. The brother of Red Sunrise, youngest son of Bald Eagle, was the victim. His canoe was seen at nightfall, wending its way up the river from one of the islands below, where he had been to hunt wild turkeys. The morning showed the frail shell, crushed and bloodstained, lying upon the rocks at the foot of the bluff. Red Sunrise wept with the bitterness of despair, and her father bowed his head in deeper gloom than ever. Then he summoned all of the braves of the tribe about him. "Brother," said he, "I am old and my bones are tired. I can follow the trail no longer as I used to, and my arm is weak to strike our foes. But the Great Spirit has given me power of sight and dreams. Last night he came to me and talked our tongue as I talked to you. He told me how to appease the bird that is destroying our tribe and desolating our lodges." A series of deeply guttural ejaculations expressed the gratification which this announcement caused. There must be one more victim. The bravest warrior of our race must voluntarily offer himself to the Manitou this night and end this devastation. Who will go alone to the bluffs at sunset and never return? Blackfeather sprang forward. I will go, he said. My heart never beats quicker or slower. I know not what fear is. Let me be the last victim and save my tribe. 9 others claimed the honor of offering themselves, and disputes arose. Peace, said old Bald Eagle. Blackfeather spoke first. If ye wanted to be the victims, why did ye not come forward at once? No, he is the bravest among you all. Let him be the most honored. Red Sunrise mourned with double desperation when she learned her lover's determination and implored him to allow another to take his place, but he listened unmoved. At sunset, he went forth from the village where every heart lamented while blessing him. In war paint and full costume, he looked more the brave and warrior than ever, and the 9 who had offered to sacrifice themselves were permitted to escort him with triumphal songs to the loneliest point of the bluffs near the Manitou's cave. There they left him, standing dark and alone against the sullen red sky of the sunset. The light faded. The gray dust settled upon the hills, the wide, smooth river, and the long, low stretch of woods upon the Missouri shore. The great white stars came out, one by one, and gleamed in troublous reflection from the dark water. The owl cried from the cedars near, and the katydid sadly replied, but no one sound greeted the ear of Blackfeather. When all was dark, a low, rustling flap among the rocks about the mouth of the cave attested the movement of the Piasa bird, and immediately after a spectral shape, indefinite but horrible, beat the air with gigantic wings and rushed forth into the night. Blackfeather knew that his hour had come. He commended himself to the care of the Great Spirit and prayed him to watch over his poor betrothed, widowed, even before she was a wife. Then folding his arms, he stood upright and calm. A rushing sound met his ears, a shrill scream, and the bird descended like a torrent. At the instant, the rocky bluffs resounded to the echo of the Piasa war whoop. A flight of sharp arrows cleft the air, and down rolled the hideous monster, pierced through and through by 10 unerring shafts. The 9 friends of Blackfeather, who had escorted him, led by their old chief, had concealed themselves in a thicket nearby instead of returning to the village, and had awaited the swoop of the bird with bowstrings drawn. Their aim had been sure, and the evil Manitou now groveled and shrieked its hateful life out upon the jagged rocks far beneath. You are saved, oh my son, said Bald Eagle calmly. And I thank the Great Spirit, and you, my father, said Blackfeather. So thus the warrior was spared, and the tribe rescued from its certain doom. The tradition goes no further, but I am surely warranted in believing that Red Sunrise became the happy partner of Black Feather, and that he was chief of the tribe after Bald Eagle's death, when he painted a crude image of the Piasa bird upon the face of the cleft, and had every warrior who passed up or down the river discharge an arrow at it to commemorate the strange episode. Stories about large birds are not uncommon in the ancient world. This creature had both legs and arms with claws on both the feet and hands. Could this giant bird have been an ancient pterodactyl, or what mythology calls a griffin? Perhaps.